Thank you for finding this video. I typically don't make videos like this, but I felt really called to make this one because of what has recently happened with the National Association of Realtors and the outcome of the lawsuit. So I wanted to make this video to share with the public. This is my public service announcement as to what is actually at stake here with this decision, because this is just the tip of the iceberg of what is actually going on. Yes, this is more than just a couple of $1,000s in commissions at stake. This is actually your freedom, your civil liberties, and the entire fate of the middle class. So I wanted to make this video as a way to educate more people, because clearly there are people who need more understanding of what's happening with the situation, and to also give consumers a full-scale picture of what's actually going on, because it's not really about the commissions. It's not about you saving a couple $1,000s. It is actually much deeper than that. So we're gonna go down this rabbit hole in this video. So first, just to give an overview of what has been going on with the National Association of Realtors, which is NAR, and the lawsuit. So basically, there are allegations that these brokerages have been price fixing their commission rates, right? There's no law requiring that the real estate commissions are 3% per brokerage, so 6% total, but that typically has been the rule of thumb for how the real estate industry has been operating. Now, whether that is right or wrong, that's not what this video is about. It's not really anything that concerns me, but that is what has traditionally been happening. And so this lawsuit is chipping away at that structure, and it's saying that it may not be legal or in the consumer's best interest to have this price structure. So they're chipping away at this pricing structure. And the best video that I found to explain this is this video that I'm going to link to here. And this gentleman actually talks about how this is more of an uncoupling of the real estate commission structure, that it's not eliminating real estate commissions, it's not throwing the industry on its head. It's just a different way of approaching the pricing situation. So I would recommend, if you want to delve deeper into that aspect of the settlement, to watch that video, but I'm going to go into the implications of what all of this means. So consumers who may not see the bigger picture think that this means they get to save money whenever they buy or sell a house. I don't have to pay an agent their full 3% commission. I don't have to pay the full 6%. I can just pay whatever it is I want to pay, right? That's what consumers are thinking. They think this is a win for the little man, that this means that they get to put more money in their pockets, they get to have more savings. Like, that's what they think is going on. And I can actually already see the signs of consumers building up this resentment towards paying agents, because once you tell people that commissions and fees are negotiable, people automatically want to start negotiating the best deal for themselves. So they're like, well, if I don't have to pay you 3%, I can pay you 2. Well, why should I pay you 2 if I could pay you 1? Well, why should I even pay you 1 if I could get the service for free somewhere, right? So it's a slippery slope. And real estate agents, what they think is going on is actually similar to what consumers think. They think that their income and their livelihoods are under attack, that their brokerages are having to pay out all these crazy settlements, that the National Association of Realtors is making these new mandates saying that you can't put in commission offers into the MLS listings, so you can't say how much brokers are getting paid, that everything becomes negotiable and it's going to be like a flea market. So that's what real estate agents are thinking. I also want to just go over really quickly this compassion exercise that I feel like a lot of people are forgetting about, with how agents and brokers must be feeling with this lawsuit. So imagine you were to go into work the next day and your boss tells you that from now on, your monthly paycheck is negotiable, that there's not going to be a fixed price rate for how much your wages are, that every single month you have to renegotiate your wages with your boss. How would you feel about that? Or if you were a self-employed business owner, or you offered products and services, and you go into work the next day and the industry tells you that you're not allowed to price fix anymore, that you can't have set prices for your products and services. You have to just individually negotiate your prices for all your products and goods with all of your customers. How would you feel about that? Because that's honestly what agents are going through in the industry. This is how they're feeling. Just wanted to throw that in there so that we can all be a little bit more compassionate, more kind and loving to one another. So I'm here to share with you guys that the actual implications of this are much less obvious. It's really not about the money that is being handled between buyers, sellers, and brokers, but it's actually something way deeper. This has to do with your freedom, because real estate agents right now, they're being paid for by consumers. Consumers are paying for real estate agent services. So the loyalty of these agents and brokerages lies to their clients, because their clients are paying to keep their lights on. Now, if you were to chip away at this structure, and I'm going to give you some examples of how they have used this exact game plan to chip away at other industries and chip away at commissions, payments, and fees, so that eventually consumers think they're getting a better deal and they think they're getting free services or discounted services, but they're actually paying with their freedom and they're being enslaved into the cycle of consumerism. Now, I know I just threw a bunch of stuff at you and this is like a whole lot of concepts, so I'm really going to break it down. If you want to try to follow me, I'm going to walk you through this step by step. So with real estate agents, I truly personally believe that they are the last line of defense between consumer freedom in the real estate industry and complete and total domination by institutional brokerages. Right now, we still have a large number of brokerages that are independently owned, and even the ones that are larger and franchised, they still have independent proprietary brokers that own each individual branch. That's the way it has been, and it's really the best, I personally think, is the best way to keep things so that you keep power small, so that you don't end up with a Walmart or an Amazon that just completely dominates the industry, right? Amazon completely annihilates the e-commerce industry. They said 40% of all online sales run through Amazon today. That's insane. That's a humongous amount of market share, and we don't want that to happen. So that is what I see happening to the future of real estate if we continue to chip away at real estate agent commissions and we continue to destabilize the current structure of things. Because right now we have power and market share dispersed. You can choose whatever broker, whatever agent that you want to work with. You have that freedom because you are paying for it. You're paying the full price of the services. Typically, it's the seller. They pay for the full 6% if they are paying 6%, and then that 6% gets split between the two brokerages, the buyer's brokerage and then the seller's brokerage. But the consumer pays 100% of the services. But consumers are typically blind to this, and they think that trying to save money is the best thing that they should do for themselves. And if that means they need to get rid of real estate agent commissions, they need to pay real estate agents less, they need to let these big institutions take over brokerages to offer them discounted or free services, that's what they're willing to do. But what you're exchanging is your freedom. And this is not just about a couple of $1,000s. That's not the game that they're playing. This goes much deeper. Now, if you start chipping away at the structure, which they have done in many, many industries, one of the most noticeable ones is the music industry. If you remember back in the day, if you're old enough to remember, back in the day, music used to be paid for by the consumer. You used to have to buy the CD, you have to buy the whole album, you could go online, you could buy each song individually, but you, the consumer, had to pay for the music. And then they came out with monthly subscription services where you can pay a flat fee to Spotify and you can listen to as much music as you want per month. So they started chipping away at the original pricing structure for the industry. And they felt like this benefited consumers at first, right? Because you're saving money instead of buying an album with a whole bunch of songs, not all of which you want to listen to. And then people started deciding that they didn't want to pay a la carte, that this was adding up to hundreds of dollars worth of songs. And after a song has been played for a while, they don't really want to listen to it anymore. So it's not like they want to keep the song in their library forever. So then they came up with a subscription service. So you just pay as you go, you listen to what you want to listen to, and then you pay a small fee. And now these platforms have offered free listening services in exchange for the consumers listening to ads in between the songs. So consumers think that they're getting a better deal. They think that they're getting a customized service, that they're getting a discount and they're getting free music. But in reality, what they're actually paying with now is their attention and their time, because that's what they're giving to these advertisers. By listening to the free advertisement, you're spending way more money on buying useless stuff that you don't need in your life. And I can guarantee you that you're doing that, because if you weren't doing that and if it wasn't profitable for them, they wouldn't offer you this free service. Think you're getting a good deal, but what you're actually paying with is your time and your attention, and you're putting your consumer dollars into useless stuff that doesn't actually pay the artists. It pays these big corporations that are funding your quote unquote free services with their advertising dollars. So that's what's happening. And this has been used time and time again in other industries. I think another really great example is the stock market industry. If you think back to how it was back in the day, you used to have a physical broker that you would use to buy and sell stocks. You didn't have all these platforms that we have today where consumers can go on and just buy and sell on their own through a platform. Right? So that was the original structure. And then of course you hear these stories of these Ponzi schemes, these unscrupulous brokers. And so they started dismantling that structure too. And so they started offering consumers the ability to pay per trades. Instead of having to pay a broker to manage your entire portfolio, you can pay for individual trades on a platform, right? And consumers thought this was a good deal because they didn't have to pay as much and they thought they had more control and say what was happening. And then eventually you evolve to platforms like Robinhood, where you get quote unquote free trades. But as we know, nothing is ever free, because when it's free, you're actually paying with something much more valuable than your money. You're paying with your attention and time. In the case of music, with the advertising, or with stocks, you're actually paying with your freedom. And we see this very clearly with the whole fiasco that happened around the GameStop stock. So not that long ago, GameStop was an unheard of, overlooked stock that was pretty much pitiful. Most people didn't have it in their portfolios. And through the power of the internet and Roaring Kitty, they were able to drive up the stock value into unbelievable multiples. And when this happened, there was a point in time where there was a massive sell-off, right? And there was a panic and everybody tried to sell off their GameStop stocks. And what happened is all the traders on Robinhood who had free trades were unable to complete their trades. Robinhood actually shut down their platforms and stopped all trading for GameStop during that day. Was that legal to do? No, but could they do it? Yeah. Why? Because you gave your power to them by engaging in their quote unquote free services, meaning that their loyalty is not to you because you as the consumer are not paying for their services. It's the institutions in the background that are funding Robinhood and keeping their lights on. So their loyalty no longer lies to the consumer, which makes sense because you're not paying them. They lie to the institution. So what happened was they prevented all the traders in Robinhood from being able to sell their GameStop stocks. And what happened was the value of the stock plummeted. The institutions had their butts covered because Robinhood had their loyalty to them and didn't want them to go bankrupt. What happened is consumers lost out on $3 billion worth of trades because they engaged in a platform that offered free services, which meant they paid with their freedom because they weren't free to buy or sell in this market. They were under the control of these institutions that were backing the Robinhood platform. So that is what happens when you engage in this seemingly harmless chipping away at the commission or payment structures, but you as the consumer are actually giving away your freedom and your power to something outside of your control when you do that. So the traders on Robinhood, they lost their butts. The stock plummeted and none of them were able to cash out before that happened. And that only happened with Robinhood because Robinhood offered free services. Now with other traders or if traders had a broker that they worked with or with other pay per trade platforms, they didn't have the same problem. It happened with Robinhood because their services were supposedly free. And that is the game that they have been running in industry after industry after industry. They're actually trying to dismantle the middle class. I know that sounds really crazy. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I've actually sat around with my friends and we've gone like really deep down this rabbit hole. And we have come up with a conclusion that all of these strategies that we see happening time and time again in society, and we don't really know who's orchestrating it. You know, obviously it's just the elites, the people in power, they're doing this. And we've been trying to figure out why. Like, why on earth would they want to do this? Why are they trying to chip away at our payment structures for different enterprises? Why are they trying to take away our freedom and our ability to choose? Like, what do they have to gain? Well, what they effectively do is they disempower the middle class, because the middle class, and quite frankly, the lower middle class, are the ones who are most likely to engage in these free services. These quote unquote free, it's not really free because you're paying with your time, your attention, or with your actual freedom. They're trying to target that demographic who is most likely to try to take advantage of these types of discounted or free structured services and products, and they are trying to eliminate them from the middle class. And what happens is if you target these people in the lower middle class who are already on the cusp of going into the lower echelons and potentially having to live paycheck to paycheck or having to live in poverty, then they move down to that other group and then they no longer become a threat to the upper classes. Typically, if you're not stable and if you're unable to provide for your basic needs, you only have one thing on your mind. You have survival. That's the only thing that is important to you, and that's on the forefront of your mind. Every single day, you're just thinking about how to put food on the table for yourself for another day. Once you're in the middle class, you typically can afford to not worry about survival. You have your basic needs met and you can afford to think about other things. You can afford free thinking. If you don't have your basic needs met, then that's your number one goal, is to meet your basic needs. Once you have your basic needs met and you are effectively part of the middle class, then you can afford to think about other things. And they don't want that, because when you start thinking about other things, you start thinking bigger, you start empowering yourself, you effectively become a threat to the upper classes because you have the ability to become mobile, and the middle class has enough resources that they can climb up that ladder and reach the upper echelons, and then that threatens their power. So they don't want that to happen, and that's why time and time again things have been put into place to try to dismantle the middle class. But people don't think about it this way, especially with this whole NAR lawsuit situation. People think this is just about saving themselves a couple $1,000s, but just know, once you start dismantling the structure, it's a very slippery slope before you get to the point where you are enslaved to institutions that run discounted brokerages, big brokerages offering you free services. You may think you're saving money buying or selling houses, but your entire fate is in the hands of these organizations. I wouldn't be surprised if 20 years down the line, that is what ends up happening. We have discount brokerages which have already started coming out, like Redfin, Orchard, or all these other discount brokerages that are coming out, and eventually they're gonna come out with free services service models where you can buy or sell your house for free with this brokerage, but the brokerage will be backed by some institution or a hedge fund that doesn't have your best interest in mind. And then you may run into a situation similar to GameStop, where if the housing market starts to take a turn for the worse and you want to sell your house, these big brokerages won't represent you. They'll say, we don't want to do that. Because if you weren't able to sell your house and you were foreclosed on, then they could buy your house from under you for a lot less. So I would not be surprised if something like that were to happen 20 years from now, because this is the same game plan they've used over and over again in multiple different industries. So I just want consumers to be aware of this. I want them to know how real these implications are and to understand how much of a privilege and benefit it is to them to be able to continue to pay real estate agents commissions on the consumer end, because this is how you protect yourself from something like this in the future, which is very likely to happen. It's like the boiling frog syndrome, if you've ever heard of that one, where they talk about how if you throw a frog in a boiling hot pot of water, it'll know it's boiling water and jump out. But if you put a frog in a pot of water and you slowly increase the temperature 2 degrees per minute, which is apparently the rate at which a frog's temperature naturally increases, then the frog won't notice that the temperature is rising, and you can incrementally increase the temperature of the water on the frog until it boils in the pot and it's cooked alive. And I personally think that is what they're trying to do. This is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the first chip in the armor, and they're going to slowly try to dismantle the way that real estate commission structures are handled throughout the entire industry, and they're going to start chipping away at your ability to protect yourself against this class warfare, because that's really what it is at the end of the day. They're trying to eliminate the middle class. They're trying to demobilize society. So that's my 2 cents. Hopefully this opened your eyes to what is actually at play and what is actually going on. I hope that if this made an impact on you, you can like this video or leave a comment so that other people can find this video. Or if you know someone who is in the real estate industry who you feel like needs to watch this video, then please share this video and forward it to them. Thank you so much again for watching my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.